What's up, people? Jay here with a review of WWE NXT TakeOver The End. The show went off about 12 minutes ago. We had a lot of matches that a lot of people were really excited about going into this show. We'll see how everything turns out here on this review. Go ahead, leave your comments, your thoughts as I discuss the matches. Let's go ahead, talk together, all of that good stuff. Where do we get started? I guess the perfect place to get started would be the first match that occurred, the opening contest of the night. This was the debut of Andrade Cien Almas versus Ty Dillinger. As I said, this was a debut of Andrade Cien Almas, and I'm not even going to think too much about this match because I know the purpose of this match. It was just to get his face out there, let everybody know who he is and a little of what he is capable of. There wasn't much to digest in this match for me. Because of that, it was kind of like an exhibition match, showcase type. We knew that this guy was going to go out there, he was going to get the victory, and you know, some of us knew that we weren't to expect much, but from what we did get, there were some cool things like the double moonsault that Cien did and that's something that they're going to need to do. I noticed that they're going to need to find some kind of way to shorten this guy's name. Are they going to call him Andrade? Are they going to call him Cien? Are they going to call him by his last name? Like, find out a way to shorten this guy's name so we don't go through the complications all the damn time. But, you know, for this purpose, I'm going to call him Cien. That double moonsault that he did from the top rope where he missed the first one and then he went right back into another moonsault, that was pretty cool. The from Ty Dillinger's side of things, the super kick when Cien was doing the handstand or the headstand on the turnbuckle, that was pretty cool. And the finisher for Cien, I found that very interesting because the commentary team kept talking about how it was double knees, but me being the type of person that I am, the very analytical person, and you know, looking at things and analyzing them and seeing them for what they actually are worth, I see Ty Dillinger in the corner. Cien charges at him, and I see his knees separate, and he basically, like, it was a flying crotch attack. Like, that shit, if anything hurt, that was supposed to, you know, be the cause of the pain. But shit, in that case, I don't know who was hurt more, Ty or Cien, but apparently he has that Joey Ryan thing going on. So I mean, good for him. Whatever you got to do to get that win, shit, he got it in the end. And yeah, congrats. It was a solid debut for him. Of course, we're gonna see more going forward, and that's, I think, all that they really needed to do in this match. Make people excited for his debut in NXT, and hopefully, you know, I would guess that they would hope that all of the fans would be in a situation where they're like, I want to see what else this guy has to offer. And I can say that I am looking forward to see what Cien amounts to in NXT. So I guess with that being said, this match was a success. And Ty Dillinger, I have to give him props because that guy goes out there and, you know, he just wins to lose. He got a match on NXT recently with Blake or Murphy, whichever one is not injured. Yeah, he got a match with that one, and he won, and it was just to set him up to lose here to Cien. But that guy is awesome in the ring, and I guess that comes to his detriment, though, because he can make anybody look good, and WWE values that so highly that that's that role that he plays in NXT, that utility guy where we know we can put him into the ring and he's going to make somebody look good. And I mean, he's playing his role effectively, but being a fan of him, I would, you know, hope for something greater maybe in the future. But nice outing for Ty Dillinger and Cien here. Second match of the night. Speaking of me being a fan of people, man, these two tag teams, American Alpha versus The Revival, tag team match for the NXT Tag Team Championship. So, as you should know at this point, the story is The Revival lost the titles at NXT TakeOver Dallas to American Alpha, and this was American Alpha's very first title defense here, and it turned out to be their last title defense also, because The Revival, they recaptured the titles, and now they are two-time NXT Tag Team Champions, the first actual two-time champions in NXT, period. No one has ever won the NXT main championship or the women's championship twice. So the Revival, they're the very first act in NXT as a whole to become double champions. This match was absolutely amazing. This is one of my favorite matches of the year, with two of my favorite acts going head to head. And when you're in a situation like this where you have two acts that you're a big fan of, you want nothing but the best for them going into a match. And I got that. Like, I sat there and I was on the edge of my seat at nearly every single second of this match. A very thrilling contest. A lot of great stuff with Jason Jordan, Chad Gable, them being the baby faces, them getting the crowd hype, and then the Revival absolutely crushing all of that hype that they create. And that's something that's so undervalued in wrestling today, being a legit heel. And they're saying, their catchphrase, it says it all: no flips, just fists. They're not going out there to impress you. They're going out there to whoop ass, beat people down, and crush your hopes and dreams. And I look at that and I know how undervalued it is when we're living in an age where you have shit like what happened in the match with Will Ospreay and Ricochet. When you have stuff like that going on, teams like this tend to be overlooked, or acts like this tend to be overlooked. The guys who are going in there and they're playing their role, and they play that role not just effectively, they're fucking awesome. The Revival is an awesome tag team, but I think because it's built within them to not be flashy, it puts them at a disservice to the people who look at flashy as, oh my God, that's amazing. Like, you can't be awesome if you're not jumping all over the damn place and, you know, doing flippy shit and stuff like that. They don't do any of that, but for what they do, they are amazing. And I friggin' love that tag team. And going more into one of the reasons why I love them, before the match, they were talking about how, I think it was Scott Dawson, he said, referring to American Alpha, they're great amateur athletes, but I don't think they've ever been in a fist fight in their lives. And that's a flip on what we usually hear. Like, hell, we just heard it on Monday Night Raw with AJ Styles. Like, anytime you have one of those indie darlings going up against John Cena, they are always talking about how much of a better wrestler they are than John Cena, and how wrestling this and wrestling that. We saw a bit from Dolph Ziggler about that too. But we tend to forget that this is like a fight. It's a simulated fight. And sometimes you can do the most technical moves that you could possibly figure out on the face of this planet, but if somebody punches you one good time in the damn mouth, it's over. That's it. If your ass gets knocked out from a punch, I mean, boom. You can do all of the flips and twists and turns and holds that you can, but I mean, there is some value to going in there and knocking a motherfucker out. And we saw there was a lot of value in that in this match, because the Revival, they win back their tag team titles. This was great stuff. A lot of awesome moments in that match. The double ankle lock sequence from American Alpha onto the Revival, that was great stuff. At one point, I was like writing down all of the spots that I liked in the match, and then I just forgot about it because I was up on my fucking screen like this, like, oh my God, this match is so amazing. I don't give a fuck about notes or anything like that, but I do remember in my mind, because it was so awesome, some of the things that happened when, I believe it was Dash Wilder had Chad Gable up on his shoulders, and Scott Dawson launches himself towards Chad Gable from the turnbuckle, and Gable grabbed him and like used that momentum that he created to counter into a belly-to-belly suplex. That was amazing. The way in which the match ended, where the Revival, they did some great heel work and neutralized Chad Gable when American Alpha were going for their finishers, and then they end up winning the match. Just great, great stuff from these two tag teams. They're both awesome in very different ways, but these are two of my favorite acts in NXT as a whole, where you're talking about tag teams, singles wrestlers, period. They're my favorite. And in overall WWE, and this match is an exact example of why, because they're both so awesome in what they do. And yeah, that match was great. And then we got a very interesting situation that developed after the match, where you had two random dudes. I don't know who the hell they are. I'm pretty sure Wrestling Inc. or somebody has found out who they are by now. I haven't done any reading on it. I guess I'll do it the old school way and just, you know, watch the show and see what happens from that point on. But yeah, they come out, they completely demolish Jason Jordan and Chad Gable. Then Paul Ellering comes out, the legendary manager, former manager of the Road Warriors. He comes out and he just stands there, doesn't say anything, and they, pose on the side of him, flanked to his left and his right, and yeah, don't know what's happening with that situation, but I guess we'll watch and see what happens from this point on. But great match from American Alpha and the Revival here, with the Revival retaining the tag titles. The next match here was Shinsuke Nakamura versus Austin Aries. Once again, another absolutely amazing match. Nakamura, he's so dynamic, and I was nervous about the fact that he was coming to WWE, but I'm glad that we've already seen two amazing matches from him. We've had that ability to see him work in NXT with some great talent like Sami Zayn, and now this time around, Austin Aries, and already this guy is burning up the charts. I'm so glad that so many people that didn't know who he is are being exposed to the awesomeness that is Nakamura, the charisma that guy brings to the table, and what he does in the ring, like the unique offense that he employs. Just great stuff, and we got a lot of opportunities to see that in this match. And Austin Aries, he's no weakling. Like, he went in there and he definitely handled his own business, but at the end of the day, Nakamura, he did win this match, and it came at the fault of Austin Aries. There was this great point in the match, my favorite, one of my favorite points, because there was a lot of great stuff happening here, but they were battling on the apron, and then they were going back and forth, trading blows, and then all of a sudden, Austin Aries lunges out at Nakamura, and he hits him with a Death Valley driver on the apron. And as we've heard before, that's the hardest part of the ring, and it looked as if Nakamura was knocked out. He sold that like a friggin' champ when he was laid out on the ground on the outside of the ring. So Austin Aries uses that moment before Nakamura is counted out to dive onto Nakamura, but Nakamura rolls out of the way, and Aries crashes into the security barricade. And I thought that was a very nice moment of the match, because if you look at the story that was going into the match, it was all about Austin Aries wanting to put the attention on him, put the spotlight on him, because he was talking about how all of these guys are coming in and they're taking the attention away and things like that, and he is not what do they call it, the best. That's why he calls himself great. You have a lot of A-grade talent in NXT, but you don't have a double A-grade talent other than Austin Aries himself. So you could look at the situation and say, well, you're kind of stupid because you ended up breaking the count, and Nakamura would have been counted out if you didn't intervene. But Austin Aries didn't just want to win. He wanted to prove his dominance over Nakamura, and he wanted to take all of that attention that was focused on Nakamura, harness it for himself, and use that as a rocket to propel him to the top of NXT. Unfortunately, it did not work out for him, and Nakamura ended up getting the win here in what was an awesome match. Like, hell, I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I am biased as hell when it comes to Nakamura. His entrance, the theme music, and then the strobe lights, that's enough for me to think any match of his is great. And that's before he even steps into the fucking ring. So you will never hear me say that any Nakamura match is less than great as long as he has that entrance. I'm just going to go ahead and be real with you guys. The next match that we have here at NXT TakeOver is Asuka versus Nia Jax, a singles match for the NXT Women's Championship. Here's the thing. I ripped Nia Jax like hell when she had that Women's Championship match versus Bayley at NXT TakeOver in London a few months ago. And I'd say deservedly so, because at the time, I looked at her and all I saw was size. You could have very easily taken somebody out of the damn crowd that was as big as her. Not necessarily saying that there are people who are of that stature, you know, in the everyday walk of life, but that's just what it seemed like to me. Like, you just plucked somebody because of their size and put them into a ring, and they didn't know what the hell they were doing. And I stand by every single word that I said then. And what I hoped at that time was WWE sent her on a journey where we were able to see her rise up the ranks. We were able to see her develop her skills and become comfortable with her size and let her control it. Not letting the size dictate her, but her, you know, her utilizing that size to inflict damage. And when I tell you that Nia Jax, that's my homegirl now. That is my fucking homegirl. Like, she's put in a lot of work, and you know my saying is criticize when necessary, but give credit where credit is due. Damn it, credit is due in the case of Nia Jax, because she has honed her craft and she has risen up the ranks to be one of my favorites in NXT at this point, and I can definitely say that. The second match that she had with Bayley, where she injured Bayley, that was a great match, infinitely better than the first one. And then the triple threat match that she had with Carmella and Alexa Bliss, that was another good outing from Nia Jax. But as good as I thought those matches were, I was fascinated by Nia Jax in this match. And that's not hyperbole, that's not me overinflating things. Like, I was just sitting there watching her like, my God, this girl is fucking good. Like, she really is. The way in which she's in command of what she does in the ring. My big issue with the match that she had with Bayley was that none of her action was believable. Sure, you go for a scoop slam and, you know, you go for a leg drop. If I don't buy any of it, like, if I don't feel like that person is legit, you know, like, if it doesn't feel real, I'm taken out of the process, and I'm not really invested in what's going on. She whooped Asuka's ass in this match. She beat the brakes off of her, and I felt every single bit of it. And that goes into not just physically doing the moves, but that goes into developing your psychology and just the overall act. I see that she's put in work, and it's reaped benefits, because I was really fascinated by her in this match. And of course, Asuka, I'm a fan of her, and her, like, she actually got the win in the end, which kind of surprised me in the way in which they went about, you know, going through the ending of this match. And it was a cool little twist, not something that you see too often in WWE as a whole. The ending kind of came out of nowhere, but in a really good way. Like, Asuka was going off on Nia Jax, and then she had this big scream, and Asuka just charged at her, you know, hit her in the head with a knee, I believe, and pinned her, and the match was over. Like, they really went to war in this match, and I can't wait to see what happens from this point going on. Like, how is Bayley, how is her return to the women's championship scene going to affect what's going on here? Are we going to get another match from Asuka and Nia Jax at some point? A lot of questions and a lot of intrigue based off of what happened in this match. And I got to give props to the team down in NXT, because you would think with losing people like that lady up there, the boss, and Charlotte and Becky Lynch, 3/4 of NXT's core of the women's division, you would think that, well, I'm not even going to lie, they did struggle a bit, because shit, I just talked about it. The Nia Jax and Bayley match, that was definitely a struggle. But they found their footing once again. They rebuilt that division. They had to build up some more characters in Asuka and Nia Jax and bring them to that level where they're able to compete here. And this is a match where, like, so much of the NXT women's division has revolved around the 4 horsewomen. Bayley, Sasha Banks, Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and this, we finally got an opportunity to see a match where it's for the NXT Women's Championship, and none of them are in that match, but they still put on a damn good match here. So props to the team down in NXT for bringing it all together with Nia Jax and Asuka. And the final match of the night was Samoa Joe versus Finn Bálor, a steel cage match for the NXT Championship. Let me start off by saying that this was a good match. I really don't have any complaints about the match at all. I feel as if they did justice to the cage match because WWE has made me very, I was going to say fearful, but like disgusted. That's the word that I'm going to use. Disgusted when it comes to stipulations, the way in which they overuse them and abuse them, because WWE will lie to you straight to your damn face and tell you, we are having this cage match here so that there is no interference. But we're existing in a time where interference in cage matches is the fucking standard. And they will still lie to you every fucking time a cage match happens to get you to the point where you are, or at least they're trying to force the belief that, you know, oh, well, no interference can happen here because this is a cage match. And just doing stuff like that, it's like made me disgusted with stipulations. But I like the way in which NXT handles the very few stipulations that they have done, and the way that they use them as high concepts, and the way in which they're supposed to be used. Not we're just going to do this because, hey, we want to do it. We want to corporatize this violence and, you know, if forcing it into places that it shouldn't be. I felt as if this feud told a story that would rise to the level of a steel cage match. But my issue was, and I mean, you can take it for what it's worth. Maybe this is me just finding things to complain about it, and maybe you will get what I'm saying. But with the way in which the match was booked at Dallas, I felt like that was more of a worlds colliding, feud ending match than this one was. And if we could find some kind of weird way to swap the two matches and then have shit, this is like in some weird alternate universe where, like, I want the action and the sense of urgency from the TakeOver Dallas match. I wanted that type of feel for the ending match of this feud, and it didn't really rise to that level for me. Now, that's not to say that we didn't get some good stuff out of this match, because we did. The false finishes with the coup de grace and the muscle buster, that was good stuff. We also had the actual ending of the match where Finn Balor was going to exit the cage and Samoa Joe slammed his head into the cage, and he picked him up and he hit him with a muscle buster from the middle rope. That was all good stuff, but it's just that I never got that, like, oh shit, worlds are colliding. Like, they described the match at Dallas as King Kong versus Godzilla. I did not get a King Kong versus Godzilla feel in this match. Now, you could take that for what it's worth. That doesn't mean that this was a bad match. It just, like, I don't know. Like, I wanted a little more. And maybe they set the bar too high at Dallas. Maybe that was it, because I was so fucking excited about that match. And that was really a great match between those two. This one was a good one, but it just didn't rise to the level of great. And I mean, if that's looking at things negatively, then I guess that just shows how awesome Finn Balor and Samoa Joe was. If I'm like, shit, they weren't great, and that's a problem, you know. But Finn Balor, this was the first loss of him as the demon character. That's interesting, and I think that with this subtitle of The End, it's very interesting because it had many meanings. The end of this feud between Balor and Joe, then also the end of the beginning, meaning that NXT is about to enter into a new era, and you have to wonder what comes with that era. Like, could this loss signal Finn Balor moving up to the main roster? Could this loss signal American Alpha moving up to the main roster? Like, how is this brand split going to change NXT? And I think that Triple H actually answered that question. He said that there are going to be some changes made to NXT with the brand split. So I'm guessing that that means that a lot of these guys from this roster are going to be moving up to Raw and SmackDown, and you kind of have to wonder, how are they going to fill those spots? You know, because you do have the guy who was riding for NXT, he's working up on SmackDown right now. That's great for SmackDown, and hopefully he does wonders up there with the brand split. But what does it mean with this new rider having to face this very daunting task of rebuilding this promotion? So I guess we'll see what happens. But overall, before we move forward, I guess we have to put the cap on this night for the end. I'm looking, if I had to rank the matches, I would put the Revival versus American Alpha, number 1. That was my match of the night. Nakamura versus Austin Aries, number 2. Asuka versus Nia Jax, number 3. Samoa Joe versus Finn Bálor, number 4. And the opening match of the night, Andrade, Cien, Almas versus Ty Dillinger. I'm putting it last, but I mean, it was still a good match. NXT, they always raise the bar when it comes to stuff like this, so don't look too much into it being, you know, the last match. It's the last match on what was a friggin' awesome, awesome, awesome show. And just to go back to the beginning of the show, that video package that they aired, I was sitting here about to get fucking emotional watching that thing because I'm so emotionally invested in so many of the characters, so many of the storylines, and so much of what happens down in NXT. Like, they've done such a great job at crafting this company, this promotion, that I'm so emotionally invested in what's going on that, yeah, I was sitting there like, my God, what a fucking awesome job that they've done. It's like they were sending me on a journey throughout time in NXT, and all of those moments that I saw, I was able to recall the feeling that I had watching them the first time. And that's not something that I get too often in wrestling, but when it does happen, the best thing in the world. Absolute best thing in the world. So thank you to Triple H, William Regal, whoever the new head writer is down in NXT, like everybody who's involved in the promotion. You continue to, what's that thing I said? You entertain, you provide a nice payoff, and you give us stuff to look forward to in the future. Cannot ask for anything more, and you do it consistently every damn time one of these specials happen. It's always great stuff from them, and this one is no different. I'll end this video right here. Thank you all for tuning in. You can catch me next tomorrow. I don't know what we'll be talking about now, but we'll find some good stuff, and maybe you can even throw out some suggestions on Twitter with the hashtag PWFEmpire. Follow me on there at PWFEmpire, and talk to you guys later. Peace.